Welcome to today's Quantum Sparks microclass. The topic today is cadence, the symphony of communication. Today we're going to explore one of the most overlooked yet powerful forces in communication, cadence. Just as the symphony uses rhythm, pauses, and tempo to create emotion and resonance, cadence turns ordinary words into an unforgettable experience. Whether spoken or written, cadence is the subtle architecture that guides how your message is received, felt, and remembered. In real estate, it can be the difference between sounding transactional or truly transformational. The way you pace your delivery, when you pause, when you speed up, and when you slow down. These choices shape not only what people hear, but how deeply they connect. By the end of today's microclass, you'll see cadence is not just a tool for communication, but it's a strategic advantage, helping you influence, inspire, and elevate every conversation that you have. As always, we like to start the program with a reminder that knowledge is only potential. The true power is in execution. So make sure you have pen and paper available so that you can take notes throughout the program and execute after the class has completed. The first quote today is "The pause is as important as the note" by Truman Fisher. Cadence is the rhythmic flow of sounds or words, and it influences the energy transfer of communication. So as we talk about cadence today, we're going to talk about the words and the words we use in conversation, but also the cadence of writing. So the sentence length, the punctuation, the rhythm, and the word choice. We'll also talk about cadence in speaking, the pacing, the pauses, the tone, and the vocal inflection. Cadence is seen most often in music. Symphonies use cadence to resolve, to transition, and to create emotion. As well, cadence in communication notes that the one piece that we typically mirror the most when we are connecting with another human is their cadence, how fast they're speaking, how loud or how soft they're speaking. We end up mirroring, which is interesting because as we talk more and understand the concept of cadence, we learn that we're always in control because of that mirroring process. But why does cadence matter so much? Well, it all comes down to receptivity. In other words, how receptive is the other person to a message? And much of that has to do with cadence, because cadence is what creates attention and it is what creates an emotional connection. It is the rhythm of the energy that we're creating through our words. Cadence is the difference between being heard and being remembered. It is truly the transfer of energy. It is the rhythm that creates resonance with the listeners. But why is it? Why is it that the words alone, when spoken to another human, why is it that the words alone don't transfer? Well, first, the cadence creates neurological alignment. So think about this. The brain naturally seeks patterns and predictability. Since the beginning of time, humans have this piece of their brain that we search for patterns because that created survival. When there were at the beginning of time, when people were living in jungles and survival meant noticing if a pattern changed in the landscape. So in our speech and when we're speaking and writing, when there is rhythm present, our speech in music or writing, the listener's brain waves begin to synchronize with that rhythm. This synchronization creates a sense of harmony, which is experienced as resonance. As well, the resonance is also created through cadence through emotional engagement. A steady or intentional rhythm mirrors emotional states. So when you think about cadence, you're thinking about emotion. Is it a fast, excited pace, which would seem to create urgency, or is it calm and soft? Either way, you're conveying a message through the cadence in and of itself, beyond the words. And emotional alignment happens with the cadence, not necessarily the words. The resonance, the stickability of the message is in how it is delivered through the cadence. Also, that rhythm, the cadence, creates resonance through physical response. Humans are deeply attuned to rhythm. Think about how people tap their feet to music without realizing it. In communication, rhythmic cadences can spark similar involuntary reactions. So, for example, you're in a conversation and you see the other person nodding or leaning in or their heightened attention. All of this embodied response strengthens resonance. So, in other words, the energy transfer is strengthened when we notice that our message is being received because of the cadence, that the message is being received, and we can see it because the other person is reacting to the rhythm. And when we see them reacting to the rhythm, we keep doing more of the rhythm. Cadence also creates resonance, that is the stickability, because of memory retention. So rhythm makes information more memorable in general. So think about poems that you have memorized, songs, prayers. Just as people remember song lyrics or poetry easier than just a plain prose, rhythmic phrasing and communication resonates because it sticks. That resonance ensures ideas linger long after the words are spoken. Rhythm is the carrier wave. Resonance, stickability that is the effect it produces in the hearts, minds, and bodies of the listener. Let's talk about the science of mirroring. People unconsciously match cadence. So we've talked about mirroring in the past, and oftentimes when you think of mirroring, you think of like body language. So somebody crosses their arms sitting across from the other person, then crosses their arms. So there's a mirroring taking place. But subconsciously or unconsciously, we also mirror how people speak to us conversationally. So if somebody is speaking loud, we're going to also, you'll notice that your own voice gets louder. If somebody speaks softly, you'll begin to lower your voice. People mirror one another's cadence because humans are wired for connection through rhythm. It's part of our psychology, our physiology, and it's how we bond. So, why does that happen? Something called neural mirroring. The brain contains these mirror neurons, and they're cells that fire both when we act, when we're doing something, but also when we observe someone else acting. So when we're listening to someone, our brain unconsciously rehearses the speaker's rhythm, their tone, and their pacing. And this neural mimicry naturally leads us to align with their cadence. Mirroring cadence is a subconscious way of saying, hey, I'm with you. I hear you. I understand. I agree with you. Just like matching posture or gestures, syncing speech rhythm signals empathy and belonging. It deepens rapport and builds trust between the speaker and the listener. When two people share a rhythm, communication flows more smoothly. The listener doesn't need to work as hard to decode the message because their internal rhythm is aligned with the speakers. This makes the conversation feel effortless and resonant. Rhythm carries emotion. So if someone speaks quickly with excitement or slowly with a calm intention, others instinctively adjust to match. This is how energy spreads in conversations or meetings or even in crowds. In early human tribes, synchrony through chanting or drumming or walking in step created cohesion and safety. Mirroring cadence reinforces unity. So today, even though we're no longer tribal, living in tribes, our brains still use cadence, mirroring as a survival-based social glue. The role of pacing in holding or losing focus. So one of the reasons cadence is so important is because just like a poem, for example, think of a poem like Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue. Poems hold our attention because of the way they are paced. It makes it harder because of the pacing for somebody to lose focus on what is being said. That is true in all conversation. So the more rhythm that your conversation has, or your listing presentation has, or your marketing pieces have, the more rhythm you create, the better you will hold the attention and the focus of the person that you're speaking to. As well, cadence creates trust. Consistency and rhythm conveys reliability because, like we said, people like patterns. So when you have a pattern that keeps going, that consistency in and of itself conveys, I am reliable. You know what I'm going to say. You know what my next line is going to sound like because of the rhythm of it. And then also punctuation. And when it comes to written cadence, because as I said, there's the written, the spoken cadence, and then the written cadence, which is where do you place the pauses within a sentence? Because punctuation and flow shape reader engagement. So we said a moment ago that if you want to hold attention, keep a rhythm going. The same is true in written cadence. It matters where you put the punctuation. It matters where you put your pauses because the way your sentence flows is going to shape whether the reader stays engaged in the messaging or moves off to another subject. And then rhythm, of course, is a tool of influence. That, of course, makes sense because cadence is a way to deliver energy. More than the words themselves, the way the words get delivered and stick or resonate with the person is through the rhythm and the cadence of the messaging. So that means the better you are at cadence and understanding how to use cadence in your messaging and your presentations and your marketing, the better your message is going to be retained by the person receiving it. And of course, if somebody's retaining your message, you have influenced them. So your cadence can be used as a tool to influence. So cadence shapes both thought and feeling in the listener. Let's talk about cadence in real estate specifically. Where can you build cadence into your daily real estate practice? It is everywhere in your practice. So first of all, let's just talk about leads in general. What's interesting is that people sometimes are not super fast at getting back to a client who has called them for the first time. Let's just say a lead comes through to you, maybe it's a Zillow lead or something like that. When somebody calls you, how quickly you respond to the call or to the email creates a cadence. So you create a cadence just in your responses to people. And so if you are, if you receive a call or email and you are not quick to respond, in my opinion, the reason why perhaps that customer goes somewhere else is because they don't like the cadence. They want somebody who can respond faster, for example. So you're setting the cadence in how quickly you respond to a message, what time of day that you return a call or respond to a message. So think about that when just in the simple process of receiving a phone call from somebody. Also, your listing presentations. Think about how you can guide a client with your pauses, with your rhythm throughout the presentation in such a way that you create a cadence, a high and a low, a high and a low, so that your presentation feels comfortable. And it only feels comfortable because of the cadence created. Buyer consult, same thing. You can create calm confidence just with a steady presentation and a steady tone. By setting the cadence, you create the experience for the buyer. Same with negotiations. You can use pacing and pauses in the spoken word to strengthen a position. As well in negotiations, you can use properly placed pauses and punctuation to further control the flow of the message. And prospecting calls, your tone and your rhythm can build trust. So think about how the trajectory of the phone calls when you're making a prospecting call and how the cadence creates a flow and delivers energy into the receiver. And emails and text, same thing. Sentence flow, punctuation. You want to have a flow and a rhythm, and the goal is to create clarity. And marketing. So think about the cadence of a marketing piece. Every single marketing piece has a cadence. So, for example, is there a big, bold headline at the top? Is there a slogan that is repeated throughout the piece? Look at any marketing piece and you can pick up a rhythm. So realize that it is that rhythm, the cadence of the messaging, even more so than the words, that is delivering the energy to you. It is making it either resonate, something that's going to stay with you, or something that you just let go. Think about cadence as well for your client updates. So using rhythm to reduce stress and to build trust with the client. As you go through the different aspects of your business, from listing presentation to buyer presentation to marketing pieces, always notice your own patterns. So become hyper aware of the cadence you're creating through the spoken and written word, and ask yourself how that cadence is resonating. What is the effect it is having? And if you don't like the effect that it is creating, how can you change the cadence of it? So listen to your own patterns. And remember that silence can become a very powerful tool for emphasizing. So if you want to emphasize something, you don't have to scream it or make it bold. You can just pause. The pause, the quiet, is extremely powerful because it leads the listener or the reader or the other party to the conversation to a place of just thought, no sound. And then think about best practices when you're thinking about your own flow, your own cadence in your conversations, when to slow down and when to accelerate. When you are trying to help your client feel calm and comfortable, then you want to slow down your messaging and lower your voice. You want to change the cadence. If you want to create a sense of urgency in your communication, you'll accelerate the conversation. You'll accelerate your volume, your speed, because that in and of itself changes the message. So think about how even pacing, volume, all of these are pieces of the cadence that you can use to regulate the flow of conversation. When it comes to volume, soft is for intimacy, strong is for authority. So when you want to make sure that, for example, the customer understands a sense of urgency about something, of course, you're going to talk a little louder. Practical and ethical considerations of cadence. Anytime in a mindful or in a quantum sparks, when we're talking about influence, we have to talk about intent. So influence can be used for good or for bad. This is why intent matters. So when you are paying attention to your cadence, ask yourself, what is the purpose of the words you're using and the cadence you're using? Are you doing it or using the tool of cadence for good, or are you doing it for selfish purposes? Cadence doesn't just carry information, it amplifies the energy and the motive behind it. In other words, you could have two different sentences of these two sentences with the same exact words delivered by two different people, and the messages are completely different because of the cadence of the message. Even though the words are the same, the message is completely different between the two because of cadence. So that's why cadence is so important. It creates influence because it is the heart of the messaging more so than the words themselves. So think about your intent. Because this is a tool of influence, you have to look at your intent. When your intent is aligned with service and honesty and clarity, your cadence is going to strengthen trust. But if your intent is manipulative, it is going to end up creating distrust. So if you have a bad intent behind the reason for your cadence, then the cadence is still going to create influence, but the person who's receiving it is going to feel that something's off because the energy that got delivered felt off. And potentially that person ends up feeling manipulated. So for example, using cadence to calm an anxious buyer during negotiations, that's a good intent. So for example, when you're in intense negotiations with your client, using a soft voice and slowing down your pace, because that's going to make the listener feel different. They're going to feel more calm because your cadence is more calm. But what if you're using cadence to rush someone into a decision? Well, then that could be questionable intent. So think about your intent, especially when you are becoming hyper aware of how the cadence can be used to influence. By the way, cadence can also be used on you. In fact, this happens all the time when people like advertisers want to instill a message or to influence you to make a decision. So how do you know when cadence is being used on you? Well, number one, anytime somebody's using like repetitive patterns, repeated words or phrases with a rhythmic delivery, which is super common in sales or politics or preaching. So anytime you see a rhythm, it means somebody's trying to make something stick with you. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but you can know that somebody's using cadence to deliver a message. Also, there's what's called call and response cadence. This is where the speaker sets a rhythm that draws listeners into an agreement. So, for example, somebody's trying to sell you something that gives you security. And they say, well, don't we all want security? Don't we all want this? Don't we all want that? That they'll lead you up to a place where you can't give a negative answer. That's a call and response cadence. Also, there's what's called emotional modulation, that is rising and falling tempo designed to build urgency, to calm someone down, or to create excitement. And then if you find yourself, maybe you're being sold something, for example, and you find yourself nodding or finishing sentences or speaking at someone else's pace, just note cadence is at play, especially when you're mirroring somebody and you see yourself nodding. Your cadence as a tool is being used to create resonance in you. And again, it doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just something to know. So when you notice that cadence is being used on you, it's always important to step back and ask, do I agree with this because the content, for example, is strong? In other words, do you really agree with what you're saying, or are you nodding yes because of cadence? Because oftentimes it is simply the rhythm of the cadence that carries you to mirror that. And that's why the mirroring is so important. The great thing about the mirroring piece of cadence is it allows you to understand that you're the one in control at the end of the day. So even when somebody's trying to deliver a message that will resonate with you, you have the ultimate control because you understand and have an awareness of cadence. Last quote for today is, language is music. Every word has a note, every sentence a melody. Virginia Woolf. So you can go download all of our past Quantum Sparks classes at laerrealty.com/Quantum Sparks. As well, you can download the slides from today's program at laerrealty.com/Quantum Sparks. As well, if there's something you'd like us to cover in a future class, go to laerrealty.com/Ask Anything. Thanks, everyone.